These players are going to have to go head to head for that opportunity to make sure that that happens.
Yeah, so I know Fabian Braun has top card events before, so I would really like to see him do it again. You know anything about Cristian?
I don't think we've seen him on stream
No,
here
I
before,
don't think we have.
so I'm sure he's running something very good. He's managed to make it to X and 1 in this
Yes.
tournament, so clearly, whether or not he's been on the stream, someone to respect, and Fabian's going to have to be ready for that. Make sure his mind is open, his mind is clear, and even though today's been such a long day, so many rounds of Swiss, we're going to have to play this last round like it's the first round.
Yes, because here is what all matters. If you lose here, you might have to hope up your chances and that you squeeze in as an X2, but making the win here is just going to lock it down. And I think both of these players are, even though it is the last round, they're going to give it their all.
Yeah, absolutely. You can see the players getting ready, just connecting up there, and going to go straight into team preview there.
Yeah, so I kind of really want to start with Cristian's team just because it's so interesting to see. We see a Kyogre, a Landorus, which we haven't really seen that much in VGC 19. It was really big in VGC 18. We see a Bisharp, a Naganadel, a Rayquaza, and a Ferrothorn. And on Fabian's side, we see another Ditto there, but also a Xerneas, a Lunala, a Kangaskhan, an Incineroar, and a Tapu Koko.
Yeah, so similar looking team to something we saw earlier today on the stream coming out from Fabian, but something completely different coming out there from Cristian. Rocking that Bisharp and Naganadel combination, two Pokemon that are going to probably do quite a lot of damage to that Xerneas there, and Bisharp also having the type advantage against Lunala there. So, even though the supporting cast not always the Pokemon that are the most offensive in the team, Cristian's going to have a good time doing a lot of damage to both the Xerneas and the Lunala on Fabian's side of the field, but does have to just pay a little bit of attention to that Ditto there.
Yeah, but also doesn't Bisharp get Defiant? So if Fabian decides to bring Incineroar, he can't just keep switching it in and out as we saw so much in this stream.
Yeah, absolutely. Bisharp, possible to learn low kick, so maybe can really punish that Incineroar and the Kangaskhan on the switch in if the Defiant does get activated. A little bit slower than Kangaskhan, and Kangaskhan, as we know and we've seen several times before, does carry that low kick, so maybe the ability for Fabian to just take a quick knockout and then just keep on bringing that Incineroar in. As we go into turn one, let's see what they've led here. Last round of Swiss here in Cologne, Germany. Let's see what's happening.
Yeah, so Cristian decides to lead that Naganadel together with the Kyogre. And on Fabian's side, we see the Tapu Koko and the Lunala coming out.
Yeah, so that Electric Surge coming onto the field, we're not really likely to see too many sleep shenanigans in this game, and definitely not with that Tapu Koko on the field. Kyogre going for that Primal Reversion, getting up that Primordial Sea. Going to be pressured quite a lot by that Tapu Koko, but, Tapu Koko is going to be pressured a lot by that Naganadel.
Yeah, so Naganadel can go for something like Sludge Bomb, which I assume could possibly just pick up the KO on a Tapu Koko depending on how it's trained or what item it is running.
Yeah, we see these kind of trios of Pokemon, and actually we've got a quad because Naganadel are going to take a lot of damage from a potential Psyshock coming out from that Lunala. Naganadel does have the ability to set up Tailwind potentially, so could be a little bit of a speed advantage coming out from Cristian in these early turns. But also, we don't know quite what's happening with this Tapu Koko. Maybe seeing a Sky Drop, quite common when we see it led with Lunala, just trying to get a Tailwind up maybe from Lunala, take something into the sky and drop it down with a big menacing Moonrose Maelstrom.
Yeah, but we actually see the Tapu Koko switching out, meaning that it's not going to go for something like Sky Drop. And the Incineroar is, of course, going to switch in, lower that attack stat of both the Kyogre and Naganadel, which is not really going to matter that much because they're both special attackers. Cristian decides that maybe Kyogre just feels a little bit too threatened by that Tapu Koko, saving it for later, switching it out here, and actually switching in its Ferrothorn. So in case there would have come a Thunderbolt out, it wouldn't have done that much better. Naganadel did actually go for that Sludge Bomb. Good that Tapu Koko decided to switch out there, and Lunala sets up the Tailwind for Fabian.
Yeah, so we were talking about speed advantage on Cristian's side of the field, but actually that's going up on Fabian's side of the field, opting to just set up that tailwind and be faster than that Naganadel that we saw outspeeding the Lunala turn 1. Good switch in for Incineroar there from Fabian, ended up really helping him to offensively pressure that Ferrothorn, not something that, is known for liking to take fire attacks, shall we say. So Naganadel there just going for a protect, being a little bit on the defensive.
Yes, also meaning that there's not going to go a switch out, but we actually see Lunala just going for a side shock, which we were just talking about in that Naganadel. So pretty good that it protected. Incineroar not wanting to go for a fire move here, but instead opting to just U-turn and switch out. So
Yeah, good play there coming from Cristian actually. Realizing that the threat of that Kyogre coming back in to take away the ability for Incineroar to use its fire-type moves was too much for Fabian to deal with at this early stage in the game. Does miss a Leech Seed for its troubles, but Ferrothorn does try to attack in that turn, and actually, because of the way that Cristian's played it, can continue to try and set up those Leech Seeds and just start whittling away at Fabian's team.
yeah, because I think even if the Lunala runs a Z move, I don't really think it is enough to pick up a KO on that Ferrothorn.
No, probably not from this range, and Ferrothorn is very, very bulky normally. Tapu Koko going for a Volt Switch, breaking a potential Focus Sash there on that Naganadel.
Yeah, that could be pretty important if that was a focus chest, and now for instance Fabian can just take it out any other way. He can also just maybe have gone for a double up into that Naganadel, just feeling like it's just too big of a threat to its Koko.
Yeah, so the Incineroar coming back in for that Tapu Koko, and Lunala using that Psy Shock onto the Naganadel. Definitely enough to pick up the KO there. Naganadel really not the most bulky of Pokemon, and super effective attacks from Lunala are definitely no joke.
Yeah, Ferrothorn going for a Leech Seed here. This time he did actually hit, so I think Cristian just really going to go for a more defensive way to play this Ferrothorn, and just making sure that if he has up 2 Leech Seed, he's going to get a lot of health back every turn. Yeah,
and bringing that Kyogre in, late in the game from a Tailwind perspective, Fabian's Tailwind's going to be running out any time now. Getting that Leech Seed up, stopping that Ferrothorn from being hit by a powerful Flare Blitz coming out from that Incineroar, and really controlling the state of the game. Not the best thing to have to take a Pokemon detriment for that, the Lunala getting knocked out for its troubles. But we do see Cristian taking the most advantage of bringing that Kyogre in and making sure that Ferrothorn's here for the long game.
Yeah, because now looking at more Fabian's perspective, he doesn't have as many switch in depending on what he has in the back, which could possibly just be a Xerneas, which you also just don't want to take any damage with on a switch in, as Kyogre is actually protecting when we see the fake out going into that Kyogre, as we see the Lunala rise up in the sky and go for its Z move. So who do you think that a target here? Possibly that Ferrothorn, or just wants to get rid of the really big threat that is Kyogre?
Well, I think the Ferrothorn would be the obvious target here, just making sure it did a lot of damage, but possibly a little bit moot. We've seen the Leech Seed already come out onto Lunala. Lunala has quite a lot of HP, so lots of recovery there for Ferrothorn, and that's going to be making a lot of an impact in this game. Possibly going to see a Leech Seed from that Ferrothorn, if it survives the turn, coming out onto that Incineroar, making sure it's going back to, nice big amounts of HP, and actually just eating its berry. So, good play there from Fabian, making sure that it does take all of the damage that it can, and actually great team building decision there from Cristian, making sure it can both survive that menacing Moonraze Maelstrom, Leech Seed back up to nearly full HP, and go for that Gyro Ball to do a lot of damage to that Lunala.
Yeah, we also just saw Tailwind running out, meaning that Fabian either can of course go for another Tailwind, but there's also now that he can very well be hit by double an attack from, for instance, Kyogre and Ferrothorn.
Yeah, certainly. He's, he could choose to set up that Tailwind again, but actually deciding to preserve that Lunala and bring in his Xerneas.
Yeah, he just feels like the Nulana is too important to keep in the back. Tailwind might not be the most necessary thing that he does, but we see Kyogre go for a massive water spout, which is probably enough to pick up the KO on that Incineroar, but also
Certainly
doing
is.
so much damage on that Xerneas, now being just left with a little bit of health while it's getting hit by a Gyro Ball, which is just too clean knockout here.
Yeah, and going from 3-2 up to, 4-3 up to 3-2 down is not something that you ever really want to do, and certainly if you have to give up your Xerneas and your Incineroar for that pleasure. So we see Tapu Koko and Lunala come back in, and that Ferrothorn looks like it's going to be sitting pretty now.
Yeah, so definitely one of those Pokemons that once it actually gets up those Leech Seeds, maybe also runs Protect, it can just keep healing itself, protecting, keep healing itself more, and then it can be such a difficult threat to get rid of.
Yeah, and we've already seen the Z-move come out from that Lunala, so, not going to be able to do huge amounts of damage to that Ferrothorn. We saw it take it so well earlier. As we see a Thunder come out from that Tapu Koko, maybe indicating, based on that Volt Switch damage earlier as well, that it could be a Choice Specs variant.
Yeah, because we do actually see the Thunder doing a lot of damage against this Ferrothorn, but even with the Moonguy's Beam, it's just not enough to pick up the KO. As we see Kyogre going for that Scald, which is enough to pick up the KO here. So I think definitely this game went very well for Cristian.
Yeah, indeed, and it looked like it was going really well in the early game for Fabian. He looked like he was taking a commanding position, getting that speed control up, getting that tailwind up, and dishing out a lot of damage, but not quite managing to convert that Ferrothorn, causing too many problems. And the way that Cristian played it was really great, making sure he could get through that turn and keep that Ferrothorn in such a great position for the whole of the game.
So now going into game 2, what do you think the best option is for Fabian to deal effectively with that Ferrothorn?
Well, it's going to be difficult to adjust here. We only saw Cristian using 3 Pokemon in that match. We don't know what the 4th Pokemon was, so it could have been that Bisharp, it could have been maybe the Landorus or that Rayquaza in the back, and that's a really difficult thing for Fabian to be able to adjust to. What I'd quite like to see maybe going into this game is trying to set up that Xerneas maybe a little bit earlier and trying to use that Kangaskhan to maybe low kick the Ferrothorn in combination with a Geomanceed Moonblast might be enough to pick up the KO there, and really just try to. I think he's just got to focus on taking out that Ferrothorn. I think that's going to be the big thing for the game.
Yeah, because that Ferrothorn just did so much work for Cristian here. So I really think especially getting that Xerneas up way earlier could possibly just make sure that he immediately threats that Ferrothorn. And it can't go as freely for those Leech Sheets. Because, Ferrothorn with also a Berry and Leech Sheet, you need to hit it quite often.
Yeah.
You actually want to take it down. As the leads here are coming out, and we are actually seeing that Kangaskhan join the field here.
Yeah.
As is the Lunala and the Kyogre on Cristian's side going for its primal reversion together again with the Naganadel.
Yeah, so I think good adjustment here from Fabian coming out with that Kangaskhan, something I'd quite like to see. He is going to have to be careful. That Ferrothorn can always just poke its head out the door, come back into the game, and those iron barbs with especially Kangaskhan hitting twice is going to be quite impactful, doing a lot of damage to that Kangaskhan. But, if he manages to make the calls right and target into the right slots, maybe his target is that Kyogre. Maybe that's what he has to focus on this game, because if the Kyogre's off the field, then that Incineroar is having a really good time.
Yeah, so now here seeing that we have the lead of Lunala and Kangaskhan, do you think that it's a really good option to kind of just double into that Kyogre immediately, possibly taking a KO? Because I assume something like Double Edge and Moonguy's Beam could possibly be enough.
Well, possibly, or maybe see the Psyshock. It depends on how Cristian has trained his Kyogre, some of them opting for much more defensive builds these days. But we actually see a fake out come out from the Kangaskhan. And a tailwind from that Naganadel.
Yeah, so last game Cristian didn't reveal that he had that tailwind, but this time he just wants to make sure that he matches the tailwind that Fabian goes for. I think that's quite a smart play, because now he doesn't have to worry about being outsped by all of Fabian's Pokemon.
Yeah, it certainly can take a bit more of a front seat. These tailwinds are going to run in conjunction, so, they may as well not have actually set them up in the first place. But you always run that risk when two Pokemon have tailwind that, you set it up and your opponent doesn't, and you have a really good position, or maybe the other way around, and actually it puts you right on the back foot. So good play from both players there, making sure that they've got their as much advantage as they can. Going to be just down to how this Kangaskhan targets, how that Z-move from Lunala targets, and maybe we could catch that Ferrothorn on the switch in. Maybe that would be a good way for Fabian to come back and put himself in a good position game 2.
Yeah, so Kyogre is leaving the field. The Primordial Sea is leaving, just as we were talking about, that Ferrothorn just switch in, and Naganadel going for a Sludge Bomb into Kangaskhan, doing just over half damage, and we see a double edge hitting that Ferrothorn, so possibly with a Z move, could possibly be a roll?
It's got a chance, but Kangaskhan taking so much damage from that turn, and a great read there from Cristian, knowing that the Kyogre was the real threat here, targeting, switching it out into the Ferrothorn, taking that double edge, and actually we do see the Focus Sash revealed here from that Naganadel.
Yeah, just as we were talking about in game 1, now that we actually see it revealed, being that if there would be a game 3, that would be really good information for Fabian.
Yeah, certainly, but that Kangaskhan's in range of a Sludge Bomb, and Naganadel's now the fastest thing on the field, so we'll see if Cristian decides to protect that Ferrothorn, as he has been so well in these games. And actually he does by just not having it on the field.
Yeah, we are actually going to see that Bishop here, which we were talking a little bit about in team preview. As we see Helping Hand coming out from that Kangaskhan, the Sludge Bomb from Naganadel is going to be enough to pick up the KO on that Kangaskhan. Definitely a smart play going for a Helping Hand, making sure that at least with your Kangaskhan you can do one more thing, since it is a higher priority move. Together with that Z move, which could be possibly ability to have gone into that Ferrothorn slot. That is now a Bisharp.
Yeah, absolutely. So potentially really great switch there from Cristian, coming in to take that Menacing Moonrays Maelstrom with Bisharp, who certainly resists it, and going to be good to see how much damage this does to the Bisharp. With the Helping Hand negating some of that resistance, Bisharp not really too bulky on the special side, so potentially could pick up a really big KO here, but we see, just like in game 1, oh wow.
Just doing over half, yeah.
Just over half, yeah. So that Bisharp surviving the turn like a champ, and going to be going into the next turn and pressuring both Lunala and Xerneas.
Yeah, so seeing as Fabian has actually brought the Xerneas to Lunala and the Kangaskhan, it could be a possibility that he also has that Incineroar as well in the back, as what he did in game 1, and that just means that he is now not really free to switch. And that it might actually be like he's facing a Naganadel, which is still going to do quite a lot of damage with Sludge Bomb against Xerneas. Yeah,
so, he's got to be really careful how Fabian plays this turn. Sludge Bomb coming out onto the Lunala there, doing a little bit of damage, getting the poison, and breaking that Shadow Shield that we've seen so much. Moongeist Beam coming out onto the Lunala. Which one's it going to target?
Ooh, we are just going to have to see. It is going to be the Naganadel. Of course, with that 1 HP left from the Focus Sash is more than enough to pick up the KO. As Xerneas is just opting to go for a Moonblast here, just get rid of the Bisharp. And making sure that maybe next turn he is in a better position to maybe set up Geomancy.
Yeah, so good turn there for Fabian, taking out a double KO as both Tailwinds leave the field. So Fabian coming back in with his Primal Kyogre and Ferrothorn. Not the worst position to be in, actually, going into this turn. We know that Ferrothorn really does like to stick on the field, has a great matchup against that Xerneas, and we've already seen the Z move from Lunala coming out, so a lot less pressure coming out. And of course, as we've talked about a little bit before, if you double down into that Ferrothorn, then the Kyogre's free to just attack. So really going to have to be careful how Fabian approaches this turn.
Yeah, because last game we actually saw that the water spout coming out from Kyogre did a lot of damage on the Xerneas. So I don't think that's really something he can afford if he still wants to be able to, because he's probably not able to KO Ferrothorn with one hit, meaning that if he actually wants to have his Xerneas stick around, he may have to go for something like a Protect.
Well, potentially, yeah. I mean, he's going to have to be really accurate in this turn and make sure that his Xerneas, if it tries to get up a Geomancy, that he gets it up. If it doesn't manage to get a Geomancy up, maybe just doing a little bit of damage to that Ferrothorn in the meantime.
Yeah, Lunala going for a Moongeist Beam here, just making sure that it just gets as much damage off before it goes down to something like Poison. But here the Kyogre going for a Scald there, bringing it down to only 20 HP. And since the Lunala is poisoned, he's living actually with 2 HP.
Yeah, so the poison coming in really clutch here. Fabian does have another Pokemon in the back, probably that Incineroar that we've seen so much of. And, Fabian's got a decision to make, whether he goes for that switch out to Incineroar at the potential of taking a Scald, and whether that Ferrothorn just decides to opt for a Protect this turn from the Moongeist Beam.
Yeah, but we actually are not going to see any Protects coming out. So if this Lunala targeted that Ferrothorn, we are actually finally going to see it leave the field.
Yeah. Brilliant predict there from Fabian, and getting the Geomancy up as well, just making sure that he's going to take as little damage as possible from that Kyogre. Brilliant turn of events here. Definitely could have gone the other way, but Fabian making the correct call and giving him every opportunity to come back to this game. He's obviously going to lose the Lunala this turn, but in response, he manages to get a fake out onto the field and pressure that Kyogre for the rest of the game.
Yeah, just Kyogre now going for Water Spout, but now since Xerneas is actually boosted with that special defense, it just doesn't really do that much damage here. And now Fabian is actually free. Yeah, we are going to see that Incineroar here. So Cristian could maybe go for a Protect to stall out that fake out, but being against a boosted Xerneas might just really be a problem for that Kyogre.
Well, he's got one chance to get a critical hit, maybe, depending on how Fabian's trained that Kyogre. Deciding not to Protect, just going for it, and falls to the Fake Out and Moonblast. Be good to see if this actually does pick up the KO, as it does. So taking us to a Game 3 in this last round of Swiss. Could it get any closer?
Yeah, so we're actually seeing Cristian win Game 1 quite dominantly, but now actually kind of things change around in Game 2. Fabian was able to come out on top of it, making a lot of good calls and making sure that in the end he was in a position where he only kind of faced at Ferrothorn, but he could still kind of get his boost up. He could use his Lunala to take down that Ferrothorn.
Yeah, and really good damage ranges coming out from that Moongeist Beam. We saw it just not quite pick up the berry there, so Ferrothorn remaining at low HP, and it was absolutely crucial to how he was able to go into that last game, the last few turns of that game, and actually, set up that Geomancy and really pressure Cristian in the last turn. So we've seen a couple of games now. We've seen some really interesting Pokemon. We have now seen that Bishop's coming out onto the field, but do we want to see the same 4 Pokemon again?
Maybe. I think he might want to kind of go back to what he had in Game 1, where it just, it did work for him very well. We, of course, never really knew the last Pokemon, so it could have been Bishop, but I think he is just going to bring the same Pokemon. And Fabian did switching up with that Kangaskhan. I think that works a lot better than the Tapu Koko that he had in Game 1. I also feel like he just really doesn't need that Tapu Koko for the terrain, or maybe I think he has also more than enough ways to easily deal with the Kyogre. So I think just Fabian actually also bringing the same 4 Pokemon might just be his best option.
Yes, and we've seen so many games where that the leads are the same, the Pokemon are the same, and the game's completely different. And maybe we'll see that coming out from Game 3 here as we're going into turn 1 of the final game of the day.
Yeah, so Fabian leading again with that Kangaskhan and the Lunala, which worked so well for him in game 2 and got him the win. And Cristian also having that same lead with Kyogre and Naganadel.
Yeah, so we may see another matching of tailwinds here, but it could be that Kangaskhan decides to go straight on the offensive here, maybe opting for a double edge onto that Kyogre and dropping the power of that water spout. We haven't seen all the moves yet from Lunala on Fabian's side of the field either, so you got to expect maybe there could be a wide guard going on there. And if he's got it, now would be the time to use it. This last game hasn't revealed it so far and could really set him up for a really strong turn 1.
Yeah, so if he would have been, if he does run wide guard, yeah, perfect turn to now use it. Make sure that you are not going to get hit by those really big water spouts and origin pulses, as Kangaskhan is going to go for that Mega Evolution again, getting that parental bond ability with doing that 2 hits, which might be a little bit of an issue with that Ferrothorn. But Kangaskhan going for that helping hand, wanting to boost his Lunala, possibly, which is going to go for a Z move, which we saw in the last game as well.
Yeah,
as
and
is just going for that Tailwind. And here it is.
Here we go. So this is going to be a really, really big Menacing Moonrays Maelstrom, and you've got to expect probably going into that Kyogre. We've seen the Focus Sash already on the Naganadel, so not really worth going into that slot. So maybe predicting the Ferrothorn to come in here, maybe trying to pick up a cheeky little KO on that Ferrothorn, but actually may end up taking a cheeky little KO on that Kyogre.
Yeah.
Puts him in a really good position if it does take out the Kyogre and send it back to Cristian, because that Incineroar on wow.
Oh, we see it live with 1 HP.
This is going to be the strongest water spout ever. 1 HP damage on Kangaskhan, 1 HP damage on Lunala. Oh my god. He managed to survive. He managed to get, and actually, you know, he's broken the Shadow Shield. You know, it doesn't matter how much damage that you do. That Shadow Shield is broken now.
So yeah, that very crucial lift for Cristian here. That 1 HP, making sure it can also just break the Shadow Shield from that Lunala. Naganadel following that up with a Sludge Bomb. And this time, Kyogre is just going to go for his Scald and pick up the KO on that Kangaskhan. Wow, what an interesting turn. As Lunala goes for Tailwind this time, it does want to make sure that it has the most speed.
Well, if you wanted a roller coaster in the last round of Swiss, we have it right here. Oh my god. So Tailwind being matched, we're going to get that Tailwind lag, so Fabian going to have 1 clear turn where he has Tailwind and Fabian doesn't. These Pokemon, we know how they match up roughly speed-wise. So Tapu Koko going to be the fastest thing on the field, closely followed by that Naganadel. Going to be good to see whether that Kyogre is going to actually just be knocked out this turn, whether Cristian's going to be able to preserve it for later in the game. Make sure that that Incineroar on Fabian's side of the field isn't going to be able to take the KO onto Cristian's Ferrothorn that's done so much work.
Yeah, as Naganadel goes for a big Sludge Bomb into that Koko. So this time maybe not bringing Incineroar, but just bringing the Koko as we saw in game 1. And we see the Naganadel also getting a Speed Beast Boost, which may really be important in Tailwind. As Lunala goes for another Moongeist Beam, possibly into that Naganadel. As we see it go, not needing that Sash to live there, but the Kyogre going for quite a big Scald here, doing, because the Shadow Shield was broken, just over half damage.
Yeah, and we see Fabian getting 2 Pokemon KO'd, so, you know, even though he had that big Menacing Moonrays Maelstrom into Kyogre, didn't quite pick up the KO, but actually had to take a little bit of a detriment where Cristian got his Tailwind up and managed to punch on through with a combination of attacks on Kangaskhan and then another combination of attacks for taking out that Tapu Koko and doing a lot of damage to that Lunala. Now Fabian does have the Xerneas left and can maybe look to try and get up a Geomancy, but he does have to be worried about that Naganadel just doing a load of damage with Sludge Bomb.
Yeah, so even though Cristian's Pokemon are quite low, we need that if maybe Fabian can find the right play, he could possibly bring it back to a 2 versus 2, but now facing down. And a Drago Meteor here coming out from that Naganadel onto that Lunala is enough to just pick up the KO there. So definitely not looking good for Fabian here.
Yeah, not looking good at all. And, you know, whenever you go 4-1 up, normally a good thing for you. Xerneas, one of the things that can, you know, usually take a game 4-1 down if it gets the right position and gets this Geomancy that we're just seeing set up now. But actually, almost certainly, Cristian's got that Ferrothorn in the back, and not really the best looking Pokemon for Fabian to be facing down at this the end of this game. Obviously, you know, he can take the double knockout, and Cristian can just wait for that to happen. Get the Ferrothorn in for free, full HP, use a Gyro Ball and probably pick up the KO there to finish off this game.
Yeah, because I don't think there's any need for Cristian to make switches here. Naganadel did his job. Kyogre probably also with living, breaking that Shadow Shield, and if Fabian just goes for that Dazzling Gleam, but we also saw the 2 speed boost for that Naganadel, so it might even outspeed?
Yeah, it should outspeed there with the 2 beast boosts in its speed. Going to do a little bit more damage and just, you know, making sure that happens. Fabian trying to be a little bit cheeky there, setting up a second Geomancy, and actually, you know, we laugh, but actually that's a really good thing for Fabian to be doing. He's already got 2 plus special defense, going to be not taking too much damage.
But getting that burn, meaning that there's just nothing Fabian can do anymore.
No, it's gonna go to Cristian here at the end of this game. You can hear the crowd cheering for him. A lot of people look like they're supporting Fabian and Cristian here at the end of this game as we see the final Sludge Bomb taking out that Xerneas and
see a really big sigh coming out from Cristian, because we've just definitely been taking on a whole roller coaster.
Absolutely, it's game 3 of the last round of the day. Just so tense. So much going on, so much on the line. Cristian's got that spot in the top 16 for sure. We'll see how Fabian gets on and if he manages to squeeze his way in there. Hopefully he does, because he really deserved to with the way that he played those games. Bit of a shame that last game, that Menacing Moonraze Maelstrom, not quite picking up the KO there. But, you know, Cristian taking a full advantage.
Yeah, so also Cristian running really not a very known team. He had a Bisharp and a Naganadel and a Landorus, but he was still able to here pick up a win against quite a more standard team.
Yeah, exactly. And you see a lot of players, several notable ones that run things that are slightly different, and they know the matchup. Their opponents, not so much. And you've seen him really take advantage of that in this game.
Definitely. So we are just going to go into an interview